Hey, it's James Carse Bees, and look what we got going here. We got a tree that fell, or a branch that fell off a tree, and we got bees. So look at this. They're in there. Pretty new comb. Their entrance is over here. You can see them down there. So the plan is we're going to cut this longer limb off here. We're going to take care of some of this debris with the loppers, and then we're going to cut that log there. I got a gentleman from Arizona here, Drew's going to help out with the chainsaw. All right, so what we have here is a limb that has come down from a pretty old and large tree, covered with vines. There's a lot of dead branches. It's no surprise if you just wiggle this how light this branch is. So this isn't a real solid tree. So good spaces for a swarm of bees to move into. Bad for the bees that the tree fell down. And what we're looking at right now is this is probably the main entrance with a secondary entrance over here, a little knot that has come out. And because this comb is so light colored, what we think is that these are a recent swarm of bees that have moved in and made this comb. And then obviously where the branches broke down here, you know, we see some comb again, but it's again very white comb. So typically what you see in these trees is a very dark comb. That indicates they've been there for multiple years. And then I will say it's an overcast day, a little bit of rain every now and then. Normally bees are pretty hyped up, so I'm pretty excited that these bees aren't really coming at us. We'll wait till we turn on the chainsaw though to see how that goes. So Drew just knocked it out.
Dang, they're not even really going that bad.
I am amazed. These are pretty gentle bees. They're good bees to save. This is bees you want to have, you know? Wow. I can't believe they're not coming at us.
Dude, that's crazy. It's my new blood, that's why.
It is. What do you think, Drew?
I think it's pretty awesome, man.
All right, cool. All right, we got Carps and Drew here. We just met. We might have met each other before playing hockey. We're not quite 100% sure, but we're figuring that out. But behind us here, what you can see, there the bees are in the truck. So, voila. Well, I'm not sure what happened, but we lost our audio. I think it got corrupted for some reason. Maybe the GoPro got too hot. But what you see here is we have now moved the log to our quarantine apiary where we're prepping to actually cut it open and get inside to get to the comb and move the bees. And you can see that I have superhuman strength here to be able to lift this enormous log. Obviously, it's pretty hollow, or otherwise I couldn't do that by myself. But I'm going to go ahead and get a couple different types of saws out here, and we're going to cut into that log, trying to be really careful not to cut the comb. But you never know, because you can't see inside the log to know what's there. So we're going to do the best we can to avoid hurting bees and cutting their comb, because we really want to save it and ultimately transport that comb into a nuke box and ultimately a new hive where they can be successful. And we really hope we find a queen and we can move her into the new home and they'll all march in there. But again, you never know what you're going to find until you start cutting, so you just got to get to it. So that's what I'm prepping to do here. So here I've used a couple different saws. I'm down to the jigsaw. I find the jigsaw's good because it allows you to make some precision cuts without cutting too deep into the comb. Again, a lot of this depends on how thick the wood is and all that. And I've grabbed my handy dandy hive tool here, and it's amazing how handy a hive tool is. And you can see here I'm prying off some of the bark and wood here to get to the actual comb. So I'll just toss that away. So what you're going to see here is I'm actually examining the pattern of the comb and the way it is actually affixed inside the log here to try to figure out the best approach to pulling this comb out, getting large sections of it without damaging it is really the goal here. And I've noticed that this branch that used to be there is really causing an issue in terms of my ability to be able to get in and get the comb. So I'm taking the jigsaw and we're gonna, try to cut through that section there. So while I do that, you can enjoy the bees hanging onto my hat. And so a couple things while we're waiting for me to get through this little section of log is I'll just mention, first of all, these bees were some of the most gentle bees I have ever encountered. So I have a few people that I help with their apiaries, and they have gentle bees, for sure. But these bees right here, I mean, considering they've been through a storm, the branch has fallen down, they're laying in the yard for a few days. It was overcast and rainy when we came and retrieved this log after cutting vines off and cutting through the wood and all that. Transporting them in a truck, getting them out here, all that. I mean, look at these bees. They're not attacking me. They're just doing their bee thing, trying to figure out what's going on without being overly aggressive at all. I mean, I don't think I had a single bee kind of come around and pop me in the head like I get when I'm just inspecting my own hives. So, and the ones on my hat there, hey, they're just I think they're just observing what's going on. Like, hey, we're gonna watch what this crazy guy's doing, trying to get our comb out of there. So maybe they know I'm trying to help them. So I think we're getting close here. We're making some cuts. I remember that it was pretty tough to get through this section of wood. And after this, I think my hands were pretty much toast. And I decided, I think I'm going to buy a chainsaw. But you really do need to have some different saws to be able to get into these logs. You can use a circular saw. You can use a jigsaw. Some other types of saws. And at first do the rough stuff. If you have a chainsaw, you can just get the big section. But once you get in here a little bit, you need to be pretty precise, because otherwise you're going to be tearing up extremely valuable comb. And all beekeepers know that the comb is the gold. So now originally, finally I got that out,
Originally we saw white comb at both openings in this log, so we're pretty optimistic that this was a relatively new hive. But again, you don't. It's just like a regular hive box. You can't understand everything by watching the landing board, and the same is true here. So once I got into this, I realized, oh my, they actually do have some older comb here, darker comb. So, and hopefully I'm going to put the camera on that so you can see that. But that darker comb indicates actually this hive's been around for quite a while. This colony, they've been living in this tree for a long time. So maybe not this exact colony, but colonies come and go. Again, they've been in there working on this for quite a while. So what you see there on the left side of your screen, upper left, is a frame that does not have a foundation in it. And it does have some rubber bands. So what we're going to do is we're going to get our hive tool and a knife here. We're going to try to carefully get this comb out of there and reposition it inside that frame. And then we'll take that frame and we're going to put it in a nuke box initially here, because this colony really isn't big enough for a 10 frame or a 9 frame deep box. We think my evaluation anyways, it would be better suited for a 5 frame nuke, get them built up after transporting them, or transferring them, and then move them into a full size box. So got a lot of sawdust and stuff from all the cutting, so I'm just clearing all that junk out. Again, amazing that these bees are not more aggressive as I'm doing this. So I'm picking through the comb a little bit. I'm trying to, you're trying to pick your spots here, where to begin. So because of some of the initial cuts, some of this is a little easy. So there you go. And that's actually a nice piece of comb with some honey in there. So that's kind of cool. The bees have made some honey. So we're going to set that aside for now. One thing that I am worried about here is, if we cut into the comb and there is honey, that scent gets in the air. And because we're right next to my quarantine apiary and the main apiary is not too far away, that can trigger the 30 plus hives in my apiary to start raiding. So far so good. I don't see a lot of that going on, and hopefully that continues. So here we're going to need that 5 frame nuke box. So there it is. And again, this is just going to be a temporary thing. At this point, I'm getting relatively pessimistic about the ability to find a queen. It could happen, but what I don't see is a lot of clumping that would indicate that there is a queen. So the main task here is just let's get the comb out and see what we find as we go. And I think what I'm realizing here as I cut through this comb, that there could be a problem with this hive. So we're now pulling out some of the larger chunks of comb. And this stuff should really be perfect for reframing, with those rubber bands and those frames. But I'm taking a deeper look there. I'm getting some stuff out, and I think I might have discovered something. So let's just watch for a second here and see what happens as I continue to remove comb. So there it is. I'm pretty sure at this point in the video that I realize we have an issue with this hive, and we're still getting large pieces of comb out, but what I'm noticing is an excessive number of hive beetles, and I'm about ready to find a surprise in this hive that I haven't really seen before in any of my hives. And again, this is or any that I've ever done in terms of cutting out of a tree or elsewhere. So we'll just keep digging here, keep pulling out big chunks of comb. So going to the other side to see what we can find. And it's built a little different on this side. So again, there, at the top and at the bottom here, a little bit of honey. So we're just setting that aside, pulling that out. Really digging in here now. So it's pretty narrow space. It's hard to get in here, so we're taking it out little chunks at a time. But I'll just spill the beans now. So what I discovered in here that you probably can't tell from the video is not only were there a large number of hive beetles, but there were literally thousands of hive beetle larvae in the basically in the bottom of this hive, and they were ransacking and running wild through this comb. So now the good news was it wasn't through the entire or every single piece of comb. It seemed to be isolated to a few sections, but it was actually so bad that some of the optimism I had about maybe getting some honey out of this or something like that, I'm like, I actually can't do that. The larvae had made their way through all the comb where the honey was at. So the best thing to do would be to set that comb out somewhere, close, but far enough away from the apiary that the bees could actually go to it and raid it out and, take the honey and take it back to their own hives. And there you can see it right there. That is a perfect shot. You see those larvae crawling around? That is a devastating thing to find in a hive like this. So good news is, I work on this log. Even, we're in the quarantine apiary area, but we're away from it far enough that these larvae aren't going to get on the ground and crawl up to my hive. So, but yeah, it's an issue here. And you can see if you just look at some of that comb that I've set over on the left side of the log there's brood there, there's honey. The bees are trying to do the right thing, but they are just inundated with hive beetles. So this is just kind of a classic case of a hive in nature, a feral hive, trying to survive against the odds here. So obviously a very old tree. I'm sure that the hive beetles aren't the only pest that's running through this tree. That's the reason it fell down. And it also got me thinking that, the nature of these bees are so gentle that perhaps that's one of the reasons that they were struggling with the hive beetle, because, a more aggressive bee would work really hard to kind of shuttle those beetles out of their hive. But again, multiple entrances here for this hive. This is just one section. I mean, we left behind, the rest of the hive that was, 50 feet up in a tree, so we couldn't get to it. So the good news is that there's a lot of bees, so that's good. And then second of all, there was comb, upon further inspection and really a detailed inspection, that was actually good and was not infested. So I segregated the few remaining good pieces of comb, and I went ahead and started building frames with the rubber bands here. So we were able to reframe a lot of this and get it into that 5-frame nute box there. One thing that I was not going to do is put this even in the quarantine apiary. I was not going to put this next to the other hives in the quarantine apiary because I just didn't want to have any possibility that those hive beetles would make their way over there. So that is something I just don't want to deal with. This was all very much pro bono work. I mean, I didn't charge anything to get this hive and all that. but boy, has it turned into work at this point. And this is why, quite honestly, a lot of beekeepers and pest control people and people that deal with this kind of thing won't take on these type of jobs because it's just very unpredictable. You don't know what you're going to get in the end. So the only reason that I'm doing this is just really for the love of the bees. And if you look on the right side of the screen at that stump there that's just covered in bees, well, what do they want? They want a new home, a place to live and reproduce and build a colony that can survive. Especially right now at the beginning of August, they need to be able to survive the winter. So my concern is that we give them a good healthy start here. So if I can get some comb in here that they like, get them into this 5-frame nuke box and get them rolling now before we get into the fall honey flow and all that kind of stuff, maybe they'll have a chance to survive winter. So in the end here, the result, now see all the bees flying in the air. The result is I have this 5-frame nuke box. I seeded it with lemongrass oil. Did not find the queen as I suspected. I think she's long gone. So she's either in the old hive or died in this transfer cut down process. And so there's no queen. So fortunately, I'm breeding some queens right now. So as soon as I get one available, I'm going to take one and I'm going to introduce her to this hive. And I think that will get any of these straggler bees that seem to be a little resistant to going into the 5-frame nuke box to actually come on in. So and here, this doesn't even include the stump, which you can kind of see in the background there, which is still covered in a ton of bees. So I did have an opportunity to move that stump over towards the 5-frame nuke box to try to coax them in. And then I've actually taken the cutout part of that, which you can see on the kind of upper left side there, and I've exposed that to the elements. So again, what I'm trying to do is encourage these bees to go to a nicer place to live, which is that nuke box. So hopefully they'll agree, but maybe not. So my plan is to leave this out for 3-4 days until they migrate over, and then hopefully the queen I'm rearing will be ready, and I can get her over into that box, take a couple days to introduce her, and then they'll be off to the races after that. So, and then the comb that was kind of infested, whatever, I've strewn about this little log wall here just so that the bees can clean it out and the larvae hopefully can rot in the sun. Those hive beetles, yuck. So but this log, again, since this video I've moved it over. So but what a great bunch of bees here. I hope that they make it, and I'll give you some updates when we get further along. So thanks. This is James with Carps Bees. And one more time, I just want to mention Drew. He contacted me via Facebook, and we wouldn't have saved these bees without him. So thanks, Drew.